Hey man, we're about to start a interview where I'm going to interview Wai-Ning Fong, a student of mine who purchased a series of mobile home parks that have gone really well, really terribly, back to really well. And we're going to do an interview on how you can take a deal that looks fantastic on paper, it goes to the shitter, and then turns into something pretty damn awesome. So stick around in this episode tonight. We're going to go into the deal from hell. Let's see if we can make it work.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of our monthly series of interviews with successful students, people that have been following me and doing what I preach, if you will, how to get into the real estate business from afar, how to be a foreign national, Canadian, Australian, European, Brit, South African, doesn't matter. Asian, don't really care where you're from, where you live, on how to buy properties in the U.S. to enjoy some pretty awesome cash flows. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the deal from hell and the challenges that we have had in a purchase that's now a year old. We're approaching the 1-year anniversary, and I want to share with you their trials and tribulations. I have Wai-Ning on the call, who is not somehow connected. I can see him, but he has not put in his audio pin for some reason.
I have.
Oh, there we go. There you go. Hey, buddy, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Fantastic. Is it possible for you to actually hop on Skype so I can see you?
Skype?
Are you okay?
Sure. I am on Skype.
Can you actually Skype though? Like call my actual Skype number.
Okay, I shall.
Yeah, call me on Skype real quick, and then take it from there.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right. So we're going to talk to Wai-Ning. He purchased he actually has 600 units, 400 that are operational. Here we go. And we're going to do that. And hey, buddy,
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Any way that I can see your beautiful face?
You sure you want to see that? I'm kind of in the dark right now.
Oh, are you? Are you hiding?
Let's see. Yeah, I'm kind of hiding here. Kind of hiding because my kids are going to sleep. Kind of thing.
I see. Okay, well, when you're able to hop on a visual, that would be great because we'd love to see what you look like. Sure. So you're an actual real person.
Sure.
All right. So for those of you who, first of all, welcome everyone. Those of you that are on the call, I'm going to just see who's here real quick. And Cliff is here. Happy New Year to you. Harry, nice to see you as well. Reggie, good to see you. Sam, good to see you as well. Got all sorts of other people too on the call. We got Mark. We got Christoph. Hope you're doing well. Michael, good to see you. Mo, of course. Raj is on the call as well. Munira, Nancy, good to see you. Peter as well. Peter, lots of Peters. Raj is here. Rohit, nice to see you. All sorts of Walters here too. Good to see you as well. So so we're going to talk to Wai-Ning, who a year ago you've been at this for about 2 years now, if I'm not mistaken. And your family has grown considerably since you started. And first, want to wish you a happy New Year. We've had an interesting start to the year already with a couple fires and some units, which I'm sure you're going to want to talk about. But this is basic. Are you still there? Did I lose you? Wai-Ning?
I'm on mute. I muted myself.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. Interrupt you.
Fair enough. So, this is not a rehearsed call at all. This is, as you can tell, it's going to be rough and it's going to be good. Sometimes that's the best thing to have is rough and ready. And this interview series is designed, number one, to inspire you and to get you to do more and do the best you can. There we go. Now I can see you. And get you to a point where you're not going to give up when the chips are down, because a lot of us want to do real estate and think it's easy all the time. And I've interviewed, the first interview was with Raj a few months ago, who is doing extremely well financially and has had fairly few problems. I'm not going to say that he's had none, but he's had not the nightmare that we're going to talk about here. We have Roland, who has done quite well, has had ups and downs and had some challenges, but none like Wai-Ning. So he's right now the king for now. And I'm proud of him for a lot of reasons. Number one is we'll tell you a little bit about the journey, because you actually attended one of the first classes I ever did in Toronto. 2 years ago. It'll be over 2 years ago now.
Mhm.
You joined a mentorship program, and you were actually not doing that much, and you wanted to quit. You actually sent me an email while I was in Europe. I'll never let you forget this. I remember. You sent me an email,
So
pissed
whole
off.
call's going to be about this?
No,
Because I'm not prepared for that at all.
I just want to sort of outline your journey, where you were basically said, "I want a refund. You're an asshole." I'm paraphrasing, of course. This shit doesn't work. I've been emailing and I can't get a deal. They don't exist. And you're basically you're full of shit. And give me my money back. And I basically said, "Listen, you got to work, or this is not going to work." And you did, and you found these 2 properties that you picked up. So let's first talk about where we are now with the park itself, and then we're going to zoom back to where we were when we first bought it and what it looked like, and then we'll fill in the gaps from there. So if you don't mind, let's do that. And this is completely candid. We're not going to pull any punches. There's no smoke and mirrors here. There's no fluffing of nuts. We're going to talk about all the bad things that have happened and how we came and overcame those things, because that's really the point of this call, is how you can learn through adversity. Now, Wai-Ning's background is not in real estate. I think it's in engineering. Is that true?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So you're an engineer. You're very analytical. You're fairly risk adverse.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't handle conflict that well, usually, and you are extremely honest to the point where management wants to quit as you communicate with them, which we'll talk about later.
Oh, you're going to bring that up as well.
We're going to bring
Did you save all these cards to deal in front of me today? I didn't expect that at all.
I know. I'm not here to throw you under the Wai-Ning bus. I'm here to actually to honor you, if you will. Because of you're doing a really great job. Actually, you're not even the same guy that I met 2 years ago with all the shit that's happened. So I'm really actually quite proud of you. So if you don't mind, let's talk about the 2 parks now. So give us a background. Tell us about the assets that you have, and let's talk about those 2 first.
Sure. Well, to start off, there are 2 mobile home parks down in Alabama. And they're quite huge, both parks. Both parks have lots able to hold 200 units in each park. However, there are not that many units in each park right now. Right now, there are as many as 70 units in one park and 100 units in another park. So 170 units out of potentially 400 spots that we could put into 2 parks. They're in the same town in Alabama, and they're just at either side of town, but either side of town is 10 minutes away. So currently I employ 5 individuals down there, 3 maintenance people, 2 property managers, and as of today, I found out this morning that 3 of my homes in one of my parks caught fire last night, and 2 of them burned to the ground. Well, one of them burned to the ground. The other one was damaged to the back, and the other one is damaged to the side. And right now, I'm not too sure what is recoverable at this point in time. But from what I hear, it sounds like I've lost 2 homes. Fortunately, no one was injured. They were both empty homes. They were actually homes that we had planned to renovate. And I'll go into that a bit because there is a big turnaround transition that we were trying to do at the beginning of 2017. And it's something that took a while to develop. I guess where we started, we purchased the parks. First park.
One second. So let's get into the potential of the parks, if you don't mind, real quick,
Sure.
And why you're focusing your eye on the price. So the parks are 400. There's 400 units total. Plus we got another 100 acres, I believe, where we can put, or 50 acres.
We got 80 acres.
80 acres, forgive me.
As well.
Yeah, which can accommodate another 200 units, correct? Which is the next.
Yeah, I haven't even seen that plot of land. It's connected to one of the parks, yes.
Yeah. So we have. So the potential of the parks is 600 units. which
Yeah.
is legal. It's it's legal. It's ready to go if we decided to move into that direction. But right now we're in the stabilization phase. So if we take a look at the actual real numbers as to what the potential is, so let's focus on that for a second, and then go into that this is the highest point. Then we're going to get to the lowest point, and then we're going to sort of fill in the blanks if you don't mind. So everyone understands the potential of this deal and why we actually started off in this direction to begin with. So what is the max rent that we can get per unit if we were to have what's the rent potential on a unit?
Most of our units are 2-bedroom units. They range. They rent for about $425, and our 3-bedroom units rent for about $450.
All right, so let's say $425 for the times. We'll do the 400 to get that one full. All right, that would be $170,000 a month. Our expenses. Pardon me.
No, a wonderful number.
it's a great number. Again, we're looking at pro forma now, not what it is now.
Of course.
All right, you haven't seen this yet, and the expenses are about. I'm going to call them about half. So it would be about $340,000 a month in revenue times 12, which would be about $4 million a year in revenue, and that's the potential. So you're looking at a $4 million potential, and that still leaves us with a whole 200 to develop at that point, 200 more units, which is another half of this. So there's another $2 million a year waiting in the wings. So the potential in this park is actually quite massive. And this is why sort of Wai-Ning, I believe, hasn't lost his sanity, because there is a huge number on the back end of all these problems. And we are going to talk about problems today. We're not going to talk about how much money Wai-Ning is making. We're not going to talk about how he's retired on the beach, quit his job in 5 minutes, and now has 17 kids, and his wife is she does all day long is shop. That's not what this call is all about. This call is about surviving issues and the issues that have come Wai-Ning's way. And I'm going to ask you directly, do you regret any of the problems that have had, and are you excited about the future, even though literally three units just caught fire and burned to the ground?
I think you caught me at a tricky time. I'm still in the waiting to see how this phase 1 goes. I really wanted to rehab several units at the beginning of the year. We're currently at the halfway mark of 20 units that we wanted to rehab, and now we're beginning to start looking for people to fill them up. We are getting people walking through the doors, but another potential problem that just happened recently in the last month is I lost my property manager, which is it's made it quite difficult this last month over the holidays. So she still is with us in terms of she still communicates with us because she cares about the park. It's just that she had to take care of some personal matters, to which her absence will be dearly missed for the next possibly 6 months, to which it's very unexpected to not have your main contact down there for 6 months.
Right. Which gives us an opportunity to change our management style, which we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to get into this a little bit later in the call.
Yes.
I literally just landed from Canada. I've been traveling half the day, and I tried to get hold of you yesterday, but we missed each other. So let's now. So the potential is $4 million a year in revenue. If our expenses are half, we can actually probably get it better than that. But so that's an exciting number. That's a $40 million park, by the way. For those of you that are wondering what that is, it's a $40 million asset. And when you first purchased the park, you actually, let's go back to the original struggle of finding a deal, if you can remember that far back, because you went for almost a whole year without finding a deal. Let's talk about that for a second.
Definitely. It was a struggle. I'd like to believe at that time I was applying, I guess, everything that I was taught at that point in time. but then I just had to sort of let things go. I think I began to chase things that I thought were deals and were going to be my saving grace and would get me out of my current job in life or whatever. And after I stopped chasing, that's when things sort of turned around, because the seller that sold us the parks, basically, we had been in communication for, I believe, 8 months. And the first time we were turned down, I think there was a second time we were turned down. It wasn't until the third time where we sort of proposed something and casually talked about it that things kind of worked out.
And
yep,
they did. No, they did. And how much of your own money did you use to buy these two parks, this potentially $40 million asset?
I didn't use any of my money at it. In closing, I did not put in a cent.
Right. So he bought this with literally no money down. He used extremely creative strategies. We took over the debt on 2 of the parks, if I'm not mistaken.
One of the parks had
you know
debt,
the deal infinitely
and then we
better than I
got
do.
seller financing on the other.
I'm going to completely shut up, and you tell me how we bought them. How about that?
Okay. One of the parks we bought completely with seller financing and an investor partner. And then the other park we bought, we took over the debt, covered a portion of the purchase price with seller financing, and included an investor portion as well. When we bought the parks initially, we not only bought the parks, but we decided to purchase several homes that were not rent ready at the time. I believe 75 homes, 25 in one park and 50 in the other, that were not rent ready, and they were prepared to sell to someone else. And we jumped on the chance to buy those homes. I think we got them for less than $5,000 a home. And so in the end, at closing, we brought enough money from the investors to cover closing, and basically no money out of my pocket, and the seller was willing to take a note and basically take payments from us because they already knew the current performance of the park.
Right. And were they truthful in the current performance of the park?
I would say, yeah. Any transaction like this, no. I wouldn't say that anyone's entirely truthful. The economic circumstances of people down there were not. I guess I was naive to actually how people do business down south, because they're not. They're very poor people. I'm not just to make not to make light of it or anything like that, but people handle their funds differently down there, and that's been a journey in itself. But what we found out was as much as, I'd say, like 40% of the rents were not being collected on a regular basis, or that there was ongoing debt with various people. What was happening was both parks had, when I think I looked at the numbers, of 25 to 30K in back rent debts that people had not paid rents for. But they basically just showed us what the potential rent roll was, but not the actual that they were collecting. So they were bleeding severely, and I have to say I'm currently bleeding a little bit in the park every day. But that is what this project, this 2017 project, is all about. It's about stopping the bleeding and turning the ship around.
Gotcha. So, in effect, you bought a bleeding park.
Mm-hmm.
It's been bleeding since the day you bought it.
Yes.
There have been police calls.
Yeah, there have been.
There have been Charlisha, the park manager, quit very
She
early
quit
on.
once, thanks to what I said to her.
You've actually learned to communicate better through this process. I think let's go over the learning opportunities that you've had in this. You've learned to deal with contractors that threaten to sue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You've learned to deal with contractors that don't do the work but still want to be paid.
Uh-huh. Yes, that's true. I've dealt with them as well. Going through the various stories, just to go and get the first one out of the way, my property manager, Charlisha is her name. She's actually a very wonderful person. But I guess why Marco wanted to put my video up is that when you're communicating with someone, over half the communication can be just the way people interpret your body language or the way that you're saying something. And I swear to this day, I don't think I've said anything wrong. But then when I repeated it back to Marco was like, "Oh my God, why would you say such a thing?" And I was like, "I don't know." But what happened was, basically, I guess I must have had a bad day, and I conveyed to my property manager that I was basically giving up. And she took that as, okay, if you're giving up, then I'm jumping ship and leaving. And that truly is a shame, because she is an excellent property manager. She may not have the skill sets for a perfect property manager, but she was definitely a strong asset to have. And I scared her that day, and she sent me her letter of resignation. But that aside, after encouraging her to return and paying for it, of course, she is back. But then now there's personal leave that she's taking. Right. Through no fault of her own. It's just a situation.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
She's in a bad spot, and we're hoping she does okay. So, property manager quit. And by the way, at this point, you have no property manager experience. You have no property experience. It's your only deal. And we bought the park because Charlisha was there. And if she had left, it would have been literally rest in peace, Wai-Ning. It would have been over. It would have been. It would have been over. Sure. That's been good. So what's another? There's a couple things that I've seen you grow in how you communicate, handle materials, and how you handle contractors and say no, not just take the first contractor that comes along, but you actually are extremely assertive now, which is very hard. Like I deal with a lot of Canadians since I am one. And generally, as Canadians, we don't like to be rude. We don't like to say what we really think. We don't want to be impolite. And if you carry on that communication wavelength in the South or in the U.S., what generally happens, Wai-Ning?
Oh, you get into a lot of arguments pretty quickly. Yeah. I think one thing I learned from all the contractors is to really think about where they're coming from. That area in the South where the parks are, and just the tenants and everyone that you have to deal with in that particular area it's a different. I use economy of scale. It's just like I currently rehab a home with a contractor for $1,000 a unit, which would sound totally unreasonable anywhere else in Canada or in the U.S. I don't know of anyone getting a rate like that. But even at $1,000 a unit, I still, negotiate and don't take the first offer. Or even when I heard their first offers, which was many times, probably a rate more reasonable to what we've heard, maybe in the $5,000 a unit range, I stood my ground and refused and kept on looking.
Right.
There are a lot of people looking for work, and you got to treat everyone with respect, and you got to see where they're coming from. And people want to be paid on time, and I try to respect that as well. And I've had to deal with contractors who threaten, saying, "Oh, I did such and such a work, but you didn't pay me." But you have to stand your ground, because you have people there that are viewing that contractors' work and making sure that they do a good job at what they do. Mind you, these are rehabs of mobile homes. They're not going to be done up with granite countertops or anything. So I don't want anyone getting the idea that they can go ahead and hire a contractor to pay them $1,000 to rehab an entire mobile home with luxury goods. But in the end, they're creating very rentable units, rentable to the level of Section 8, which is our main target, because we like the ability to get guaranteed rents.
How many Section 8s do you have right now?
I believe in Hidden Acres, we tripled it, and we are currently at 12. And in Cahaba, I think it's gone down a bit, but we're at 5 or something like that.
Gotcha. And we're trying to renovate all of them to get to Section 8 standards, so we can have them all Section 8, correct? Or as many?
It depends on the timing of the year. I'm learning that as well. There are good times of the year to find Section 8 tenants, usually at the beginning of the year, which is why the push is at the beginning of 2017. Yeah. So it depends if there's people looking at that time frame. But for sure, if the people are looking, I hope to have them in the units as a Section 8 tenant rather than a regular tenant.
Gotcha. So you've evaded a property manager that's extremely good quitting. Mm-hmm. You've evaded threats of lawsuits from contractors and extremely emotional contractors, because they can get extremely angry and mean. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about the water issue that we've had as well.
The water issue. The water issue has been politics. Oh my gosh, there's so much politics.
Tell us about that.
I can't deal with it. It's so funny. So one of the parks has a water issue. Basically, the water bill is way higher than what should be possible for the number of tenants that I have there. I have about 25 tenants in the one park, and basically the bill can be anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 in water. And I'm guessing that there's like this giant geyser in one of the lots, but anyways, we were given a proposition from the seller when we were viewing the park, saying that he already had someone lined up to fix all of our water woes and change those water woes into the city's water woes. So basically, instead of paying one water bill for the entire park, we wanted to individually meter all the tenants, and obviously get us out of the water distribution business. And we were all over that. So when we first closed on the park, we negotiated. Well, not negotiating. We talked to our investor and we said, listen, if we can get rid of this $4,000 to $6,000 water bill, that's instant profit, and we'll turn the park around just like that. And so we set aside some funds to do such a task, because we had already lined up a potential contractor based upon the reviews of the seller, and we're ready to go. By the time we completed 2/3 of the project, meaning all the lines were down and we were getting ready to connect it to the main, that's when the Selma Water Board, the city water board basically said, no, we're not doing what you said. And their excuse was, that's what we told the previous seller, but you're different. You're someone new. So we're not doing what you said. We're not doing what they asked for. You'd have to do it a different way. And that different way added another 20% to our existing bill. At that time, it didn't seem very possible to continue forward. So I have a lot of money in the ground in pipes that are not connected to anything. And then now I've gone through several bureaucratic meetings with the city, and finally they finally accepted one plan that we have, but they decided not to. Well, the problem with this current plan is we did a nice drawing for the park. We could easily do it, but it's going to cost a lot of money up front. So we said, can we do it in phases? And right now they reluctantly said no. And reluctantly said yes. Sorry, that's the wrong way. They reluctantly said yes.
I can hear you're distracted by your little one.
Yes, I apologize
It's okay.
if you can hear that in the background.
It's okay. It's okay. I thought it was your stomach rumbling. Maybe you were hungry.
It could be partially that too. I don't want to disguise anything.
So if I could make a long story short,
yes,
it's taken almost a year for them to actually accept the drawings for you to be able to save $3,000 to $4,000 a month in water bill because there's a huge leak somewhere, and Selma Waterworks, or the city's waterworks, is basically making an extra $4,000 a month. So by them slowing that process down, it adds $40,000 a year into their coffers. Basically.
Oh yeah. They're very happy to leave everything be and have me continuing to pay a giant water bill.
Exactly. So we've been dealing with that city issue for almost a year,
and they're still, it's bureaucracy.
They're still dragging their feet.
Everything still takes time. There's one meeting a month, and if you miss that meeting, then you have to wait till next month.
Speaking of speed, let's jump real quick to us opening a bank account because you had flown in. I'm very good at opening bank accounts. I can walk into a bank account as a Canadian, pretty much anywhere in the country, plopped on my passport and a driver's license, and in 20 seconds, literally, or I will say less than 30 minutes, my bank account is open. I went with Wai-Ning to speed up the process. He flew down. You've only been to the park once or twice, right? Twice. This whole time.
Yeah.
And you haven't been there in a while. Almost a year.
I should head back now that there's been a fire and all that.
It's been at least a year since I think you've been there. I'm not sure.
Yes,
but it seems
it's been a year.
It's been a year when we opened the bank account.
Yes.
And right after closing, and I literally fell asleep in the manager's office because it took that long. I believe that's not a word of a lie. I fell asleep right in front of the bank manager.
You were asleep. I nudged you when it was your turn to sign anything, but very much so we were sitting in that office for quite some time. We spent a lot of time in that bank, and then later on, a month later, when I saw you down in Orlando, we spent some more time at the same bank. And just recently, I'm sure you spent a lovely time in that same branch. In Orlando, and I apologize for sending you there. But yes, banking is incredibly cruel in the States in the sense that ever since I guess the crash, there are a lot of checks and balances that they need to take. And I'm just going to jump to the last one. What had happened was I made a transaction with the bank account remotely. I basically did their bill payment, and they flagged it as being fraudulent. And because they flagged it as being fraudulent, they locked me out of the account, online access to the account. And then when I proceeded to tell them my identity and everything through their fraud department, they said they could not do it because I opened the account with my Canadian passport rather than a social security number in the States, which there's no ability for me to get a social security number as a Canadian.
Right.
So I was locked out of the account, and they said the only way you can open this account is to walk into a branch, and all the branches are in the Southeast United States.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I helped you fix that. You got the right document done, and I helped you fix that. It's an advantage of me being in Florida. But you've dealt with property managers quitting. You've dealt with a fire. You're dealing with a fire now. You're dealing with people. evictions. Let's talk about evictions for a second. How many evictions at one point? I think most of the park was not paying at one point. You have more people not paying than you did paying, and the bills. First of all, let's just understand scale here. What are the bills on the park per month? Because we're dealing with large numbers, and for anyone, I'm looking at some of these comments. Well, I'm just a beginner. I could never do something like this. I remind everyone that Wai-Ning is a beginner. Well, he was a beginner. He's never done anything like this. We still communicate. Not as much as we should. I'll admit that, but recently we've been communicating a hell of a lot, trying to get this thing turned around. And I think where am I going with this? Let's first, if with the right guidance, Wai-Ning, can anyone do this? If they're given the right guidance, first of all,
yes,
you've gone through some shit.
I think so.
You go ahead. Sorry.
No, I don't think I'm anyone special. I think I'm a person who does hard work, and if presented a problem, I'll try and face it.
Yeah.
And like you said, there are definitely moments where I don't know what to do next, and I'm lost. But
right.
That's where obviously
that's where the fun is, and the challenge.
Picture.
And that's where the challenge is.
Fun is. Like
that's where the fun is. The fun is not knowing what to do next, and how do we rub our heads together. Not in a weird, creepy way, but how do we figure things out to make this fun? And I understand that the financial stress can get to you, but I think you've been good at separating yourself from that, because it's the park's problem, really. You're just the owner of the park, and the park has the problem, not you. You're not internalizing those financial issues. I hope you're not doing that, because if you can separate yourself from that, that's a big, huge step, which I know is difficult for many to do, is separate yourself from the financial problem that the park has and look at the big picture, which is when we get this turned around, it's a $40 million park. And that's a retirement fund for you and your entire family for a very long time. So, right. So let's talk about the bills of the park. So what are the monthly expenses for these? So if no one decides to pay the rent, like there's no money coming in, what checks have to be written next month? On February 1st, what are we looking at bills wise?
Okay. Well, just water alone is anywhere from just talking one park at a time. I don't want to confuse anyone, but they roughly have all the same expenses. You have water, which is $3 to $4 grand on average right now, which can jump to $6 grand, which has happened at a time. You just have to go find the leak and plug it out. Electricity, which is your office and lights throughout the park, costs around about $1,500.
Without going through one by one, what's the general expenses of the what's the approximately per month? What's it cost to
before debt repayment in terms of mortgages, it is about $7 grand.
Each park or both?
Yes, each park. Yes.
All right, so we're looking at $16,000 plus what are the debt? What are the debts? The mortgages to repay on that?
The mortgage payment in one park to a bank, because we took over that mortgage payment, is $8 grand.
All right, so we're at $24,000, and the next one?
And then the two seller financing payments are $3 grand and $2 grand respectively. So we're at $5 grand. Okay.
So we're about $40,000. Is that right? No, $30,000 a month. $31,000. All right, $31,000 a month. U.S., which is 50,000 Canadian if you're Canadian, or $1 million if you're Australian. I don't know what the exchange rate is. I'm just teasing. But ultimately, it's 50,000 Canadian a month, which means that if the park doesn't make a penny, that's $50K that has to be found, which is someone's salary every month. Yeah. So these are big numbers, and that would scare the shit out of a lot of people. It's
especially when you don't collect it. It's like, what? We're short again? Yes. And I've said that every month so far. It's like, we're short again. Yeah. And I have to say, it did worry me. Well, there's always a little worry, but you put it succinctly recently to me. It's like, what good is worrying? What can you do? Worrying doesn't do anything.
It doesn't. Worrying doesn't make the problem go away. Worrying doesn't make money in your bank account. All worrying does is make you sicker and not able to focus on the solution.
Mm-hmm. Action is the only thing that will do anything.
And it's exactly what we did. So now we're literally negative in the park, negative in the park, negative in the park, negative in the park. And, you know, it's like, okay, well, let's turn this shit around. So a few months ago, we said, okay, let's find a game plan. Let's put a game plan together. We raised enough money to let's talk about this turnaround process now. So now we've gone through a terrible management cycle, which was fixed. We've gone through a series of going through at least how many rehab crews did you go through before we found a series of good ones? How many terrible rehab?
I went through like 3 or 4 crews.
Okay, crews now. These are not people; these are crews. So we've gone through 3 or 4 crews. Now we have how many crews that can actually do something that can go on budget, stay on time, and actually do the right thing?
I'm on 3 testing a 4th right now.
Okay, so we've got 3 good crews testing a 4th. And I love that what you're saying is you're still testing, which is very, very important. It's not like, well, we have all the answers. This is the crew. We're always testing a 4th. And why do we want to have 3 or 4 crews and not just 1 crew do all this shit?
Because you can always just move on to the next crew if it doesn't work out.
Right. And they also know that if they don't do a good job, they're going to be replaced. And it keeps them honest.
See each other.
Yes.
That guy's working on that unit.
Right.
And I played I only have so many units to fix up, so they know the quicker that they work, the more work they'll get, kind of thing.
Right. Good. Now, you do all this remotely. I'm going to say this again. You live in Canada. You live in Toronto.
And I've only visited twice.
You've only visited twice. You bought this with no money out of your pocket coming in. We've gone through a series of hell with even our investors were concerned, and I think we got them sort of kind of happy almost because they see the direction the park is going. We negotiated a slower repayment plan with our investor, with the seller as well, getting them on board with the turnaround plan. There's been and you've been negotiating. I'm going to give you 100% props. You have done a fantastic job of negotiating with vendors on telling them, here's where we are. And if you don't like it, too bad. This is just how it's going to be. And that's been I'm very proud of you for that, because that is typically un-Canadian to do, specifically as an engineer where everything has to be done on time or the world is collapsing. As an engineer, that's been I'm just impressed. I'm going to say it right off the top. Very, very impressed.
I think a lot of people on this call are just like, I'm not terribly well off, but I like paying my bills. I like knowing that, it's taken care of and stuff like that. But to negotiate and say to people, hey, listen, we are going to be in trouble this month, and so can you help us out? What's our minimum payment we can do? Yes, I had a lot of conversations like that. And sometimes it works out pretty good. Sometimes you just have to pay everything and
see where it goes.
Move on to the next month.
So now we're at a turnaround process. We have how many crews working right now on how many trailers? What's going on?
We're at 3 plus the 1 being tested.
Gotcha.
We finished off. Let's see. We have 12 trailers being worked on currently. 5 are complete. 7 are promised to those contractors.
Okay.
And then they should be done in the next 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
So that will bring us to over the halfway goal of 20 trailers, which is what we wanted to fix up.
Gotcha. And once we get to those 20 trailers, what happens?
What happens is those 20 trailers translates into we filled them up, obviously, because we actually have a waiting list in both parks.
So let's talk about that real quick. Let's just talk about, sorry to interrupt you, but let's talk about that real quick. Yeah. If we had 60 trailers ready, could we fill them?
Yes.
If we had 80 trailers filled, could we fill them? I mean, if we had 8 trailers ready, could we fill them?
Yes.
Is the problem a lack of tenants?
No.
The problem has been also, we fix up a trailer, we lose 3 tenants because they're not paying.
Yes.
Right? So it's like there's a hole in the bucket. So we fill a trailer and then we lose 3 tenants. We fill up another trailer, we lose 2 tenants. So it's like taking a step back, 2 steps forward. 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That's been extremely frustrating as well.
Yeah, and to talk about the plan for just 1 second,
Yes.
over the course of the last year, we actually built up 19 trailers. We should be in the plus, but we lost 21 people, so we're in the negative just because of that.
So is that
So-
a bad? But I'm going to ask you, Wai-Ning, is this a good thing or a bad thing?
This is a good thing. These were all, I'd have to say, out of those 22 people, probably 15 of them were the deadbeats we were never going to pay anyways.
Exactly. And at first you'd look at that saying, oh, it's terrible, the sky's falling, we lost all these people. You want to get all that shit out of the park anyway. You want to get all the bad news out. You want to, anyone that's not paying, and someone that's bad news will infect 3 or 4 other people around you. They're going to say, they're going to knock on their neighbors.
Happening as well.
Where they're going to knock on the door saying, hey, I'm not paying, I'm not getting evicted, I'm just going to stay. And then now 8 people from that one guy are not doing that. So you need to get rid of that riffraff and create a new name for the park. Listen, $40 million. Again, I'm gonna restate this: is that if we can get 2 of these parks humming to where they should be, it becomes a $40 million park. And if anyone believes that creating that kind of wealth is going to be easy, or it's going to be handed over to you, or you're never going to have a problem, or it's going to be a piece of cake every single way, it's not going to happen. Wai-Ning's journey has been from buying the park where it was a positive cash flow, people not paying, him having to go through the process of actually evicting. Because at first you were like, well, they promised they would pay, let's not evict them, right?
Yes.
You're believing their story.
Yeah, I think we glazed over it earlier. You asked me the question of what the eviction process was,
Right.
and that is quite a big story.
Right.
We started the process of finding an attorney that would deal with our problem in bulk. You can't deal with it like one person at a time. You have to kick out everybody simultaneously, and get out as many as you can, because like Marco said, word gets around. It's a community. That's what people need to understand. The park is a community. People are going to talk to each other. They know that if you are going to be a slack landlord and not sort of let people get off on the rents, well, if he's doing it, I'm going to do the same thing. So yeah, that was what was going on, and we started the eviction process with a lot of people with an attorney that we found was on board. A lot of it was letters, and letters worked because these letters were not coming from us in terms of notices that we would put up, because we put up notices in an appropriate time frame, but if the letter comes from the attorney, that's a totally different thing. So some people left because of that. And then there are those who will just wait it out. And what they do is people will wait until the very last minute and then move out, just disappear. So what will happen is you will spend all your funds and efforts to bring them up to that point, which means send them notices, make sure that they show up to court on a certain day, set up a court date. You have to pay all the fees for court, and you have to pay the attorney, and then they're a no-show. You'll get a judgment against them, but what good is a judgment if they've already gone and basically they may owe you like $3,000, but there's no sense chasing them either, because if they didn't have the money to pay you the rent in the first place, what are the chances of them having the $3,000 to pay you? And it's just not worth the extra chasing
Right.
and servicing.
Letting things go has been important as well.
Yeah. So out of those 22 people, we're quite glad that
they're gone.
They're gone. Yeah. And that's what makes my property manager, Carlicia, very valuable.
So
she has a sharp mind of remembering who those people are.
Yes. Yeah. No. We've some of these people don't want to leave because the eviction process is quite slow in Alabama, and even if you offer them money to leave, they won't. They're just going to wait it out as much as they can.
Because they're playing the system.
Yeah.
They understand how long
they know exactly how long they can stay there, and they don't want cash for keys or any of that stuff. They just want to stay and stay and stay, and then they realize that at one point they have to leave when they can play it.
And then the other tenant that we the other types of tenants that we have in a mobile home park are lot renters, to which they own their own home.
Yep.
Well, even if you win the judgment, to evict someone who has their own home on a piece of land, you have to move their home. And to move their home, that's an investment. You can get the sheriff there. He'll show up.
It's $2,000. It's about $2,000 to move a home if it's on your lot.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So it costs money. So we have to, and those are decisions like, do we move one home and then use it as a sort of a sacrificial lamb where people say, oh, these guys are serious.
We will.
Yeah. It's exactly what we're doing.
Our plan is to
get that done.
Set an example. Definitely.
Yeah.
Set the example. Try to get the community thinking. Well, back into the thought that we mean business. We're trying to make sure that we want to build a nice community. We don't want riffraff, and if anyone else doesn't want riffraff, then we got to build that community.
And you have to run it with an iron hand for sure. So you've gone through pretty much all the learning opportunities. I don't call them mistakes, and I don't call them challenges. I call them learning opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
From management to evictions, which is a whole lesson in itself, to dealing with contractors, to dealing with theft, to dealing with fires, to dealing with possible crime, all these different things. Now we're in a situation where we're going to have 20 units that are going to be done by the end of the month, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an accurate number?
I think we're just a little bit short of that, but
so 18,
we're
17, 16?
Somewhere around there. Yes.
All right.
Again, like I said, we built 19 units throughout the course of a year, but the problem that 22 people left. But our plan this time is to do the same thing, build up 20 units, but just do it in such a rapid fashion to basically turn the park around quickly, because we're constantly bleeding over those 12 months, and it's tough to continually work on units when you're bleeding at the same time.
So that'll increase revenue about $7,600 a month, which will be nice.
Yes.
Summa Waterworks has approved our plan to do it in phases, which will also save $6,000. So that adds $13,000 to the bottom line, approximately.
Yes.
And then we have how many units that we can fix the next month after that we have available? So how many available units can we have fixed without hauling one extra unit into this package, into this property package, into this asset? How many can we have fixed in the next, let's call it 60 days? Because we have the cash to be able to do it. We have, we've been blessed with some funds that we've procured. So what's the number of units in the next 60 days that you think we can get to?
We're probably in the 30 to 40 unit range.
Can we say 35?
I say a range because we bought 75 units. We fixed up 20 of 20 some, right? And basically the 20 units that we are working on now are the 20 people that moved out last year too. So we have about 50 units that we can work on, but I can't say that all of them are even able to rehab. They were various conditions. Gotcha. So I'm just striking out 10 as being we can't recover from.
I'm going to call it 30.
I'm saying 30, 40 units.
Okay, I'll say 38 just to be.
Okay.
Say 12 are terrible, and then we have to remove.
Mm-hmm.
At 4 1/4 is $16,000 a month in revenue at that point. Once which we have the assets already there, and we're in a position where we're able to get those done. So if we can keep, now that we've gotten rid of the terrible tenants, that we have 4 crews working, and at what speed are they working right now? How many units a week or a month are they able to do?
I'm getting about 6 units a week.
All right.
Each crew is producing 2.
So let's call it.
I haven't seen the performance of the 4th one yet.
So 38, divide that by 6. So in basically 6 weeks, we'll say 8 weeks if we go at a moderate clip. So in 2 months, we'll have increased the park at $16,000 a month. What is the current revenue now, if I may ask? And I don't want to get too personal in our business, but approximately what's the revenue?
Well, in terms of, because right now we are in the negative by about $2,000 each park.
Okay.
So that'd be minus $4,000 a month. So
Right.
if we add $16,000 to the bottom line each month, then
It'll be
that
a nice
$12,000 above.
will be a 12 grand above. And then what we can do, which is our plan then, to take those funds, I'm assuming, and I want to talk for you, is we take any of the surplus revenue and reinvest it into the park to add more units, to add more revenue.
Yes.
Because
yes, definitely.
how much are we? So just so you understand how the economics work, now that we're almost at the tipping point. We're not quite there, but we're knock on wood. We're almost at the tipping point.
Definitely.
Once we're at the tipping point, a little bit past that, because we need to get to that ball rolling. How much is it costing us per unit to fix up a unit that we have on? So what does it cost to fix up a unit? So it's $1,000 for the labor and about what, $3,000 for the material, $2,000?
About $4,000 for material.
All right, so we're at
Because
$5,000
some
total.
units are easy and some are very hard. So about $5,000 unit total. That's parts and labor.
425. So times 12 is $5,000. So basically, any money that we put in, we get back by the end of the year.
Yes, that's why we're going
as hard as we can. So if we put in $100,000 in the park, we get $100,000 back at the end of the year that we can re-inject to the park. They get another. So we basically double our money every year, and that's not just another. It's $100,000 per year for every 100K that we put in, or 50K, or 20K. So
yes, let's go get more kind of thing.
Right,
yes.
right. So it's we're putting as much cash into the park as possible. So you're an engineer. You have a regular job. The question that's coming in is, where the hell is this extra cash coming in to make up the the deficit? If you're not, do we just run the park at a negative balance where people have to wait? Are you putting in your own money? Are we finding investors to put in the negatives? How have you survived a year in a negative cash flow position without losing your sanity? That's a question. By the way, at this point, I'd love to do a Q&A. Any questions that you might have because this guy's probably seen most of the problems that people have operating a property, from evictions to bad tenants to fires to everything. Like, you name it.
The fire one is a new one.
Yeah. Everything.
Sorry, I don't mean to make light in the situation. It's just, wow, I don't know. We'll see what happens next. But so far, it's been
new learning opportunity. So let's talk about this deficit issue. How have you handled that?
Well, truthfully, we're still in deficit with a lot of different vendors. You have to talk to them. You have to negotiate with them.
And they're basically just patiently saying, we believe in the park and we know that you're going to pay us eventually.
Yeah, I'm currently like everyone's immediate payment. No one's net 30 days or net 60 days, but I'm treating them net 30, 60 days. And yeah, at some point they'll say, hey, I'm going to shut off your water.
Right.
And you got to do something about it. And yes, I've injected funds into the park at this point in time. I've spent some of my own money, but eyes on the prize. I can see the potential in the end.
Right.
And as well, I have to say I'm no accountant, and I've moved funds around so that we are currently afloat.
Right. So we're almost at the turnaround point. It's been a year.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a point. We've had probably more problems than good things happen.
Yeah, that'd be fair to say.
Do you regret any of it?
Oh, yeah. There'll be days I say I regret it, but not right now. I think we set up a plan. We spoke to another investor. We gave the funds to basically turn this park around. I'm halfway through the month that I said I'd turn the park around, and things are going okay. Units are getting completed. I lost my property manager, but I'm not regretting it today. You asked me today. Had you asked me, I don't know, someday in August, I could say that, yeah, there are some days that, man, what am I doing this for? It seems like I'd rather just pass this off to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, this is not. It's a good problem to have. Like I mean, if my only problem is to, like, none of this is personal. It's a business. It's staying afloat. I'm not, I guess, adversely affected by it if it all goes into the crapper. But what I do realize is that there are others that are affected way more than me. I'm talking my investors, people who put faith in me to move forward and give me the loans to do the work that we want to do. I'm also looking at the people that live in that community because I'm attached to them. It's the only place that they can live. It's not. It's a very low income part of town, and I'm also attached to my employees. They work extremely hard. I don't necessarily pay them the greatest. I would love to pay them more, but it is what it is, and we all see a future for these parks that is better than the current conditions today.
And had you quit, this would have never happened at any point. So you, the July where you sent me a notice saying, "Marco, I'm going to quit. You're a dickhead. I can't find a deal. They don't exist."
Mm-hmm.
Then we got these deals. Then you got the park, and you were elated because on paper it looked fantastic. We go through the journey, and things got worse. But sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. You had a personal journey as well to go through, which is really why this call is even on. It's not all glitz and glamour, and it's not all I make $50,000 a month and I'm sitting on my ass in Jamaica right now, puffing a big cigar, enjoying the real estate. There's some work that has to be done, and it's not always going to be easy, and it's not always going to go your way, and you're not always going to meet your goals when you're supposed to meet your goals. And as much as you want it to work, sometimes it just doesn't. And you have two choices. You can quit and blame everyone, saying that this is all bullshit, or you just roll up your sleeves and you make it work. And you do what you have to do, and you hustle, which is exactly what you've been doing. You hustle and you get through it.
Mm-hmm. And I see that light at the end of the tunnel. Like, it's brighter than other days. For sure. Like, I'm like, let's get there. And that's all I want to do right now. I want to be proud of the park too. I think these are communities, and they're not just objects that I got to play with and put it on the shelf.
Right.
I want to build something.
You're building a community of 600 families that enjoy living there in a safe environment, that have affordable housing.
Yes.
Which is extremely fantastic. Now, we met 2 years ago. You had no interest in, I guess you might have had an interest in investing in the U.S. We've been working together for 2 years now. And have you, all in all, has it been a positive or a negative experience? And again, we're still in the shit right now. You see the light at the end of the tunnel, but would you recommend anyone still sticking through it, even though it's hard?
Yeah, because it's just the results are just on how much you put into it. It's not if it's not what you want to do, then don't do it, and you can go back to like what I was doing before. I spent a lot of days watching TV. I was living comfortably, but then it wasn't. I knew that I could live several years like that. Like I could go all the way to retirement, and what could I say to myself? Did I accomplish anything? Did I improve myself any bit? and that those answers weren't going to change if I didn't get onto this journey.
Fantastic.
And this journey, like you said, we're still in choppy waters, but I'm in a good mood. I found out 3 homes got burned today, and I'm smiling.
Well, it
is what it is. The most important thing was no one got hurt, and let's see what we have to do next.
Kim has a question about your spouse. Does she support this? How supportive is she?
Yeah, well, I think every man will have to say, the wife is very, very much. If she was not a part of it, this would have ended long ago.
Good.
People can't do things solely on their own when they're in a marriage. That's all.
Yeah.
It's just my comment. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't profess to have a perfect marriage, but what I'm saying is she's a very supportive person, and I'd have to say she's the most wonderful person in the world to let me go on this journey.
You're super honest, and I love that about you. You're a good man. You're a good man.
Thank you.
And I'm like I said, I've been chomping at your basically pistol whipping you a little bit here and there, but you've really taken the bull by the horns. You've grown where you're not asking me every 20 minutes what to do next.
Some days I'm like that.
Someday you still do,
Still
but
happens.
I'm just pleased that you're on the right path. You're on the right the right steps. That you're still communicating with your mentor, which is important. Because you're not to the point where you're saying I know all the answers, even though you really probably know a lot more in certain areas than I do. But it takes a lot of it takes courage to keep asking for help, and I'm very proud of you for the growth that you've made personally, and just how you communicate with people. And the emails that you send out now are like shit. That's got a lot of teeth. I'm impressed. Because a lot of the emails that I see from beginner students are super wishy-washy, left-handed, no balls, no teeth. May you please kindly do this for me, please, and nothing happens, and they wonder why.
Yeah, because there isn't a clear answer, no perfect way of doing anything, and it's no formula, but definitely your guidance of helping me figuring out my way through it. It's definitely helped.
You've done the work, though. It's all you. You're the star here, not me. I'm just pleased that you're doing it. I work with many people that I tell them what to do and they don't do it, and then when it doesn't work, they yell at me because it's my fault or I'm the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And you've only done that once, and I refuse to basically let you quit. And you had a choice.
That was at the beginning.
Yeah, well, that was actually 6 months in. You started in August, and then that was in July. I remember because I was in Europe, and I was in Rome, and it was raining, and I got this email from you, and I was pissed. I was like, how could Wai-Ning decide to quit? That's terrible news.
I'm waiting for you to show it on the screen or something.
I'm not going to show you the email.
I think it's on your desktop.
I don't. I actually have a wall.
Whenever
Whenever someone asks me to quit or cancel, I print up that email and I put it on the wall. And
I never used any profanity.
No,
I put it very lightly.
You were very Canadian about it.
Yes.
It won't be polite, and it was still polite, but it's okay. I'm just extremely proud of you for sticking to it. So let's talk right now. Let's take a couple questions here. Someone is, basically having an excuse that they're single, and it's going to be difficult when you're single. I think whether you're single or married, you have different issues, and using that as an excuse is just. What do you think, Wai-Ning? Is there there's no excuse for lack of success whether you're single or not. It's I'm going to get the work done or I'm not. That's it.
There's no definition at the beginning saying that only married people will be successful. It just doesn't work that way. I had a kid in the same year that going through this whole process.
You did.
Having the second kid is people think it's easy, but doing it at the same time as this, it's a little troublesome, and you heard them in the background. So I don't use them as an excuse whatsoever. No. I just enjoy my time with them, and I give them every second that I can.
when we have a conversation a year from now, I expect you to be on the beach. I expect the park to be at least at 50 to 60% capacity, which would still be close to $2 million a year.
I have no problems with that plan.
I have no problems with that plan either, because once you get to the tipping point, you just start reinvesting, and and that's one of the reasons why the investors have been so patient, because they all see the potential of the park. You've put your own money into the park. I've put in a little bit of cash into the park as well. Whatever all of us can do to make the project better is really the key here. Someone asked about regulatory issues. If you know how to set up Wai-Ning, help Wai-Ning. I don't want to take too much credit here, but part of my program is setting up entities, setting up bank accounts, helping you find the right opportunities, and making sure that the right opportunity is the right opportunity. And even though that this deal has sucked balls of a homeless man for the last year, it is going to be a fantastic opportunity once it's finished and turns around.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, the turn, and I can see the bend, and we're getting there. In terms of all the things about entities, and I had your people set up the entity structure. I'd like to tell you, Marco, we're all set up for both parks now. Both are set up appropriately. Right. It actually took a long time as well. Right. There's a lot of paperwork that the lawyers didn't do. Weird stuff. But anyways, I have
just one comment real quick. Sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
Someone is saying, well, why would you not do this in Toronto versus going into the U.S.? I obviously have a very good answer for that, but because I only invest in the U.S., I don't invest in Toronto at all. Your cap rates in Toronto are terrible compared to the U.S. You're looking at
I'd have to say, just straight up, I don't think there are many trailer parks, if anything. Trailer parks are mainly a U.S. phenomenon anyway.
No, there's definitely trailer parks in Canada. Absolutely. It's just your returns. The expected returns in Toronto are 5 or 6 or 7%. We're looking at most mobile home parks that we buy, Victor, are close to 18 to 20% returns before we leverage them, before the actual debt. So you're looking at 18 to 20 cap, which is your money back every 5 years. Plus, once we leverage that, you're looking at 100% cash-on-cash return. Wai-Ning is looking at an infinite return because he has no money of his own invested on the purchase. And any money that he's put in is basically a loan that he gets back as soon as it's profitable, which will be this year. So he'll get most of his money back within a year. So it's, if you've listened to any of my past recordings like this, most of the students or the mentees that I work with have anywhere between a 15 and 30% return on their cash. If they buy it all cash, leverage return is over 100%. So that's why we don't do Toronto at all, period. Any parting words? Any words of wisdom?
I don't feel that I'm in a place to impart wisdom as of yet, but I can just say that keep going. There's always some kind of turn or fork in the road up ahead, and just face it and make a decision. It's change is going to be a good thing in the end. There may be some setbacks, but in the end, I've learned a lot over this last year, and I'd have to say, just like everyone else, if I could do it over again, I'd still buy the park. It's just that I do everything that I learn a lot quicker, and I guess I can impart that wisdom onto people if they need some advice. I could tell them what I did and see if that helps others.
Everyone will have a different journey to have, and they have to learn it for themselves. Like, even if I told you what you were going to be faced with, you still have to learn it for yourself, or you can't.
For sure.
You can't grow. Your growth has been because of the shit. In nature, if you give everything to your kids, they go soft, and you have to go through the shit to get to you have to get better. So I'm proud of you for that. All right.
And none of this is in the textbook, people.
No,
I've read a lot of textbooks. They're boring.
So, if someone is literally walking on the street and they're thinking, I want to buy properties at the highest possible return, and I want to know what the first step is, what would you say to them?
I'd say get some data into what they're interested in. I got interested into mobile home parks just because of the numbers. It just seemed to make a lot more sense in the structure. If we were to build the same thing with single-family homes, like I imagine I'd have to own like 100 single-family homes to build such a similar size potential entity.
Right.
So it just analyze with what you got, and there's potential in everything. It's just that one thing. Some things are going to look better than others. I don't shoot any idea down. Like you just mentioned, why wouldn't we look in Toronto? Yeah, you could look at Toronto. It's just you want your return to be what 1 or 2%. It's just whatever you want it to be.
Fantastic. All right. I'm sure many of you have more questions, but I don't want to spend all night here. I first of all, Wai-Ning, thank you for being honest, which is all I asked for. Thank you for sharing your difficult times, which is not easy to do. Everyone wants to only talk about the good stuff. But on this week's call, this month's call, and I do this every month, by the way, you're all automatically registered for the next month. And the month after, and it doesn't end. I'll be interviewing someone that I work with closely that I've met, taught, mentored, and has gone through a fantastically good time, fantastically bad time, and anything in between. And I want to thank you, Wai-Ning, for your time. I know you have a baby and a wife and a child and a life and a whole bunch of other things that you have to deal with, and a park that's just burnt down to the ground. Well, not quite, but sort of.
Just on your home to deal with.
And which we'll get insurance money for, which will fund more renovations, which is
get insurance, people. It's important.
So we have insurance.
That's today's lesson,
which is fantastic, and and you're very chipper for someone that's had so many problems, and I wanted people to see that. I wanted people to see that just because you have problems doesn't mean you have to be sick, doesn't mean that your life is caving in, doesn't mean you have to be riddled with excuses. Wai-Ning is not an excuse-driven individual. He gets results because he doesn't let the problems bother him. And some of you have paralysis through analysis, and all you want to do is bitch, moan, complain as to why this has happened, and you're still sitting on a couch talking to a therapist wondering why you're not successful. The answer is because you're not shitting and getting off the pot and dealing with just looking at the future. You're always looking behind you. We all have problems. Wai-Ning has problems, and he's looking at a $40 million opportunity in the next 5 years if he can just stay the course, not give up, and the things we do and he's, it's a large number, and that's we've just gone over the numbers. It's 425 times 400 units. Take half our expenses. It's actually our expenses are less than half because it's all gravy once you get to a certain number. Expenses will be about 35% once you get to a part that size. Yes, and then it's going to be a domino effect of success, which I'm extremely excited for him for. I'm more excited than he is on his park. It's his park, and I'm more excited than he is. So I'm just very pleased that he's done what he's supposed to do. So high five, big claps. Thank you very much. Thank you guys as well for taking your Thursday. I know it's the new year, but I thought I'd start the new year off with a fantastic story of success with himself, which is very, very important. So Wai-Ning, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Tell Joni I said hello, and your kids as well, who have no idea who I am, other than it's Marco calling again, probably. And Happy New Year to all of you, and have a fantastic anything. And if anyone have any questions for Wai-Ning, email me. kembotrust@gmail.com is my email. If you have a question that I haven't answered or have any questions on investing in general, kembotrust@gmail.com, and I'll do my best to answer any question and send you in the right direction. Wai-Ning, thank you again. God bless. And Happy New Year coming up to you as well on the 28th.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you that celebrate Chinese New Year on the 28th.
Yes.
I know I'll talk to you every day between now and then, but Anyone
Yes.
else that's on the call, happy Chinese New Year as well. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks.